Manipulation doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it disguises itself as care, concern, or even love. It crawls quietly into relationships, romantic, familial, professional, until one day, the world starts to feel confusing. Emotions get twisted. Certainty begins to fade. The question isn't just what's happening, but why does it feel like everything is your fault? This is not overreacting. This is not being sensitive. This is the hidden architecture of manipulation, and one of its most insidious blueprints is gaslighting. But gaslighting doesn't live alone. It walks hand in hand with tactics like guilt tripping, the silent treatment, stonewalling, and love bombing. Each one chips away at clarity, confidence, and safety. Understanding how they differ and how they work together is the first step toward reclaiming your power. What gaslighting really is. Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation tactic designed to make someone doubt their own perception, memory, or sanity. It often starts subtly. A dismissive comment, a twist in the story, a claim that something never happened. Over time, the target begins to question what's real. Gaslighting doesn't just challenge facts. It attacks a person's inner compass. Examples of how gaslighting works: denying events that occurred, blaming emotional reactions on instability or overreaction, rewriting history to shift blame or minimize harm, making the target feel confused, ashamed, or crazy. The purpose is not disagreement. The purpose is control, to make you so unsure of yourself that you rely entirely on the manipulator for your version of reality. Gaslighting erodes the self slowly, like water over stone. The damage isn't always loud. It's in the silence of self-doubt, the fear of speaking up, the paralysis in decision-making, and worst of all, it often goes unnoticed by outsiders. How guilt tripping works differently. Guilt tripping uses emotional pressure instead of cognitive distortion. It doesn't distort reality, it distorts responsibility. With guilt tripping, someone uses your sense of morality, care, or obligation against you. They don't deny what happened. They frame it in a way that makes you feel guilty for your actions, even when you've done nothing wrong. Key signs: being blamed for others' feelings or behaviors, having your boundaries framed as selfishness, constant pressure to sacrifice your needs to keep the peace. Where gaslighting makes you question your mind, guilt tripping makes you question your heart. Both hurt, but they aim at different vulnerabilities. Guilt tripping thrives on your empathy. It turns kindness into a weapon. Unlike gaslighting, it doesn't try to erase your perception. It wants you to accept the manipulator's emotional suffering as your fault. That's not love. That's control, painted with sadness. The silent treatment and emotional withholding. The silent treatment is a passive-aggressive form of punishment where one person withdraws communication and affection as a form of control. It can last hours, days, even weeks. It sends a chilling message. You don't matter unless you obey. This isn't the same as taking space or cooling off after a conflict. The silent treatment is strategic. It's used to punish without confrontation, make the other person feel abandoned or desperate, force someone into apologizing or making it right without clear resolution. This form of manipulation doesn't distort your reality. It just removes safety. It isolates. It builds fear. It teaches you that love or acceptance is conditional, on silence, on compliance, on tiptoeing through emotional minefields. What makes it cruel is the coldness. There's no feedback, no repair, just distance and dread. And for someone already vulnerable, it deepens the belief that speaking up only brings loneliness. Stonewalling, the wall that blocks connection. While the silent treatment is about punishment, stonewalling is about power. Stonewalling happens when someone shuts down emotionally or refuses to engage in communication. It's not always yelling or insults. It's the refusal to respond at all. No acknowledgement, no reaction, just a wall. This tactic breaks down conflict resolution and emotional connection. It sends the message, your words are meaningless, your feelings are inconvenient. Stonewalling causes emotional starvation. It leaves the other person stuck in limbo, trying to guess, trying to fix, trying to stay calm enough to be heard. Over time, it trains you to abandon your own emotions just to keep the connection alive. Unlike gaslighting, stonewalling doesn't aim to confuse your memory, but both are about silencing. Both communicate that only one person's voice matters, and both teach fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being too much. Love bombing and the cycle of manipulation. Not all manipulation starts with cruelty. Some starts with intensity, adoration, and overwhelming affection. This is love bombing, a tactic used to gain control by flooding someone with love, attention, and gifts early on. It feels euphoric at first. The connection is fast, deep, and intoxicating. But underneath the surface, it's about dependency. Once trust and attachment are built, the manipulator begins to shift. The affection becomes inconsistent. The praise turns into criticism. The dream becomes a nightmare, but now you're hooked. Love bombing often precedes gaslighting or guilt tripping. It creates an emotional high that makes the later devaluation even more disorienting. Victims often cling to the memory of how good it once was, blaming themselves for the change. It's not love, it's bait. And when the shift happens, the target is already emotionally invested, often isolated, and desperate to regain the affection that was never truly real. Why gaslighting is so dangerous. All manipulation tactics are harmful, but gaslighting is particularly dangerous because it removes your ability to trust yourself. When you no longer believe your memory, your perception, your instincts, how do you make decisions? How do you leave? How do you know what's real? Gaslighting is an attack on your foundation. It doesn't just cause pain, it creates a prison of confusion. And when paired with other forms of manipulation, it becomes a system, a cycle, a trap. Many people living under this kind of control don't even recognize it until the damage is done. That's what makes it so destructive, and why naming it is the first act of resistance. The web of manipulation, how these tactics intertwine. These tactics don't operate in isolation. They form patterns. A manipulator may cycle through guilt-tripping, stonewalling, gaslighting, and love bombing, keeping their target emotionally destabilized. Here's how it often plays out. Love bombing to build trust. Gaslighting to create confusion. Guilt-tripping to enforce obedience. Silent treatment or stonewalling to punish resistance. Brief affection to pull the target back in. It's not chaos, it's choreography. A deliberate emotional dance where the manipulator leads and the target is made to feel like they've forgotten the steps. The goal is not connection. The goal is control. Healing begins with naming. Healing starts by recognizing that this is not your fault. You didn't invite manipulation by caring. You didn't cause gaslighting by expressing your feelings. You didn't deserve the silent treatment because you set a boundary. Abuse flourishes in silence and confusion, but the moment manipulation is named, it begins to lose its power. Breaking free requires rebuilding trust in your own perception, seeking support from people outside the manipulator's influence, learning to validate your feelings, even when they've been dismissed, letting go of the version of the relationship you wish existed. You don't need to convince anyone else. You don't need to wait for proof. If it feels like your reality is being taken from you, it's enough to start protecting your peace. You are not alone, and you are not broken. There's no shame in being manipulated. Manipulation targets your humanity, your empathy, your loyalty, your hope. That says nothing bad about you. It says everything about the manipulator. What matters now is that you see it, that you give yourself permission to feel anger, sadness, grief, that you rebuild, not in the image of who they wanted you to be, but in the truth of who you are. Gaslighting and its cousins, guilt tripping, stonewalling, the silent treatment, are not signs of love. They are tools of control, and once named, they can be dismantled. You are allowed to leave confusion behind. You are allowed to trust your voice again. You are allowed to come home to yourself.